Hello everyone, welcome to How Did They Build That? This is the Glide Apps edition. My name is Clyde D'Souza and I'm a software developer by profession. In my spare time, I have a look at a bunch of different things that may or may not be useful to me, and one of the things that I've come across is Glide Apps. Now, for those of you who don't know what Glide or Glide Apps is, it's basically a tool to make an app out of your spreadsheet. That's right. All you need to develop an app is a spreadsheet. All your data needs to be in a spreadsheet, and Glide Apps will do the rest for you. Um, and something worth mentioning is that you don't have to write a single line of code. So now Glide Apps does fall under the no code tool category, and like with any of these tools, there are pros and cons. And of course, before we actually look at the tool, let's just have a look at what are the pros and cons of a tool like this. So to begin with, a pro. It's easy to use. Now we'll have a look at the tool and what it looks like in a minute, and the process of actually creating an app from a spreadsheet. But one of these tools, the way they're designed is for anyone to be able to pick up how the app works and be able to actually develop an app without much expertise needed. And so they are very focused on making sure that the tool is actually very easy to use. As I mentioned, there's actually no developers required because you don't have to you write any lines of code to build your app. So unlike the other apps that you might have come across, you don't actually have to write any lines of code, which means you don't have to hire any app specific or operating specific developers. You don't have to hire Android developers or iOS developers to build different apps. You can pretty much just do it yourself, or anyone for that matter, as long as you know how to use a spreadsheet and you know how to use Glide, and you should be able to create an app. The last one is that it actually saves a bunch of time. Now, as you would imagine, since since it's easy, it's very easy to use, and it's pretty much just integrates and just creates the app within a few minutes. So if there's something that's really simple, and assuming your spreadsheet is nice and structured, it should create an app within a few minutes, really. So it depends on, of course, it depends on the use case, what you really want to develop. But for simple apps, you don't really need to write lines of code and go through a month or two or even more worth of development process. You can pretty much use this tool and create apps in a much shorter span of time. Now, what are the cons? What is the drawbacks? One is, you say that there's feature limitations. Now, what does this mean? This tool can do a whole bunch of things, and we will look at it in a few minutes. One thing to note is that if you require something very specific, that might not be possible. So it's really worth checking what you really want to achieve out of this or out of the app, and then just doing some research on Glide and seeing if that is possible. What you want to achieve, is it even possible? And there might be a few features here and there that may not be possible, and so it's really worth doing that research. UI and UX limitations. Now, these tools, you don't have to write lines of code to develop that functionality. They have already written that for you, which means all the elements, all the UI elements, all the UX elements is fairly out of the box, and all of the apps pretty much look the same. So if you have something really different in terms of a UI UX requirements, something really fancy, then it might not be possible. So there's just something to keep in mind. And of course, data limitations. As you have noticed before, everything really comes from a spreadsheet. All your data is in a spreadsheet, and wherever your spreadsheet is hosted, that's pretty much your database. There's no um, database hosted elsewhere or any other fancy things that goes with it. So that's just something to keep in mind. Depends, of course, depends on what your app really is. Now, I hope this has made you curious of what apps is, and how you would go about building an app from a spreadsheet. But before we jump ahead, before we dive deeper into the app itself, or into the process, there's just a few things that I'd like to highlight in terms of this video, as to what to expect from these videos, from this video, and hopefully many more videos to come. The first thing is that we're looking at breaking down an existing app. So unlike most other tutorials that focus on feature by feature, we're not going to start with a blank app and start from zero and then sort of build an app from there. What we're going to do is look at an existing app from the marketplace. We're going to pick up a template and just see how it is. First, see how it works, and then second, then break it down and see how it is actually built. There are plenty of videos out there, quite a lot from Glide itself, explaining how different features work and how to build stuff. And so I didn't want to replicate all of those. I just wanted to take it a bit of different approach here and focus on something that's already existing and try and break that down for you. So that it's just easy to understand, and of course you already have something available in the marketplace that you can copy and replicate, and maybe even follow along if you wish to. Second, you'll notice that these videos are a bit long form, so it's not very short. So it's not one of those short and quick tutorials. It's more long form, sort of let's discover this app as we go along, right? So we'll look at an app from the marketplace, and then we'll just have a look at all these features, right? We'll explore it together, and then hopefully I can explain the various different components that we can use as well. And third, that this whole video is actually recorded, or will be recorded in a single take. And now one of the key reasons I mentioned this is because at a future stage, I do intend to stream this live. Of course, this is not live yet, but I do intend to stream it live. So one of the main things that when you go live is that you can't actually go back and edit anything from the video that's been streamed, and so just following the same pattern, I'd like to focus on recording everything in a single take, and therefore that's why these videos are actually quite long form, because it's not actually edited at all. And so hopefully this format works for you, and maybe it might not actually work for some, but do let me know in the comments, and let me know what works for you and what doesn't. All right, enough of these slides. Now let's actually go and have a look at Glide apps. So if you go to your browser and type glideapps.com, you will go to this site, and as you can see, there's on the home page it says create an app from a Google Sheet in 5 minutes, and so that's quite important, right? So you can not only create an app, but it's very quick. It's very quick to create everything visually without code, right? So that's another important aspect for those who are wanting to get into it. And so if you notice at the end of this, of course there's a whole bunch of sections to have a look. There's different sample apps that and different resources that are provided. There's a whole support community where you can post your questions, and someone might be able to answer them for you as well. So at the end of it, there's this section which says browse all templates, and if you click on it, it takes you to the templates page. which has paid and free templates. So let's just have a look at all the free templates for now. And as you would see that there's actually quite a lot of templates. So if you're starting and if you have an idea in mind that you want to develop, maybe I don't know, like conference for example, you just search for it and you should be able to find something that you can a template that you can actually you can copy, and then if you actually like what they are provided. So one of the reasons they provided these templates is so that you have a base working product to work on, and then you just edit things as you go. So you just edit the data in the spreadsheet and you can build it. Now because this is the first video, I just didn't want to pick up a random template. I think for future videos that's what we'll do. We'll search this page and pick up a random template and record this video as we go. But because this is the first video, I wanted to make sure that we're picking up something that is really simple, so that we don't overwhelm you with all the different concepts. So what I've done is I've had a quick look before, and I found this particular template. So this is called as the Remote Work Toolkit template, and I've had a quick look, and this seems like it's a good template to start off with if you're completely new to Glide. So hopefully this should be quite straightforward, but it should also cover quite a bit of concepts from Glide. So when you click on a template, it brings up to this page, and you can click on Preview Template. This should open up the template in a different tab. And over here you would be able to interact with the app itself. So this is the home page. A few options over here. If you click on one of these, it takes you to another page with tools, with all tools basically. So it's a remote work toolkit template. So there are, as you would expect, there's different tools that have been listed on this app that will help you to work remotely. And I'm recording this video. This is September 2020, and still in the COVID period. So quite a bit of people are still working remotely, if not hybrid yet. So I think it makes sense to actually look at this as our first template. Now you have a list of all these apps that have been listed, and if you click on any one of them, it gives you a detailed screen for that particular tool, and just some information basically. And if you click on it, there's a link over here. If you click, it goes to that particular site. So that's the home screen. But what about the other tabs here? So you have other tabs. You have your All Tools tabs, Essentials, and you have How To's. So this basically is quite an informative app, right? So you have different tabs with different sections, and it just basically lists different tools for that section. And finally, you have an About tab, which you can just maybe type in something about the app, or about yourself if you have developed the app. There's a little menu over here which again has a few sections. Let's look at education, and under the education tab we have just one tool, but then the screens are quite familiar. So this is how it works. Now you would have a copy template button here if you have already signed in. If you have not, then probably you could sign up. So you can sign up from here, or hopefully the button should be here as well, or it should actually take you to the sign up page. I've signed up with Google using my Google ID, and on your My Apps page it will basically just show you an empty screen here for now. And so you can on the Create App button, you can either create it from a plain Google Sheet. So this is if you're starting from scratch, which we are not, or you can select it from or create an app from a template, which is what we're doing. But we're actually going from, we already know what template we're going to use. So this would actually take you to the list of templates. So we're pretty much doing the same thing. So let's click on the copy template button. This should copy this app into my account. There you go. So you have all these other edit options that have been available. That means it has been copied successfully, and it of course shows up here as well. Now of course the UI has a lot of elements. It's still quite clean, compared to many other tools that are out there. But I totally understand if there's quite a bit of things going on. So let's quickly have a look at what elements are on my screen right now. Right, so on my right, actually, you know what? Let's start from the center. That's something that we're familiar with, right? So it's an app with the app itself, and that's where you can basically play around with your app, and you can interact with it as you design and develop your app. On the left, so you have your apps icon, you have Glide apps logo where you can go back to the dashboard. You have a bunch of different options here, all of which is relating to different either screens or different options for you to edit the application. So that's all these different options available here, and we'll look at it in a minute, really. And depending on what you select on the left hand side, the right hand side pane will allow you to edit that particular item. So in this case, we are actually looking at components. That's the screen that's opened here. If you click on tabs, then that's what will show up on the right hand side of the screen. Now, I said that the app is based on a spreadsheet, and you'll see all this data. There's so much of data that's entered here, but where is it coming from? So if you click on this pencil icon over here on the left hand side of the screen, it says edit sheet, and if you click on that, it takes you to your Google spreadsheet. So when you create an account and when you sign up with Google, it asks for permission to be able to write or create a new Excel file into your Google Drive, and that's why it's automatically created an Excel file into my Google Drive. And as you can see, these are pretty much the same tabs that we looked at, and clicking on the tools tab, if you see, there's a lot of data over here. Most of it is quite familiar because we have already seen it in the app when we just had a look, and as you can see, as long as you have this data in the Excel file, you should be able to create an app. So you have how to's and about. So each tab in your Excel file or in your spreadsheet, each tab corresponds to each menu item over here. Mostly that is pretty much a one-to-one relationship. You can edit it and you can customize it, but out of the box it pretty much detects it that way. So let's look at how it was built, but of course something that you might have noticed is a little icon over here. So what it says, it's a warning sign. It says that this accent color is too similar to other colors in this theme. Alright, so it's just a warning sign on colors. It's nothing too significant. When we look at the settings tab, we'll actually look at that and edit it into a different color or something. Alright, so let's look at how it was actually built, and for that we are looking at the home page right now. So the home page, this is the home tab, and of course this is the components that are displayed over here. But you would be wondering how did it actually know to display all this information from the home tab of this spreadsheet, right? So there has to be, there's no option over here. There's no options to link that over here. So where did that information come from? And if you have this question, you're on the right track. It is coming from this particular option. So there's this tabs. If you click on it, it shows you what are the available tabs. So as you can see that this corresponds to the one in the bottom. And if I click on home, I can edit the label. In this case it's home. I can edit the icon, but most importantly I can select the source. So in this case it is home, and that basically links this screen with that particular spreadsheet tab or sheet. And so if I change to any one of these, it would change it as well. And so everything, all of these tabs, you can, as you would imagine, it's just a different label and a different source, but the concept still remains the same. Below that, there's a section called menu, and then there's a section called hidden tabs. So, and of course there's some options as well. So that basically just adds labels to the tabs below. So if I click, you can see that the labels have disappeared. Now Glide does offer there's quite a built-in functionality for chat and shopping cart. Both of these features are not enabled in this app, so we'll probably not look at it in this video, and since it's the first video, probably want to skip that part out. You have menu. So what's in the menu? So this basically controls what shows up here in our menu, in the app menu over here. So it basically matches one for one. So if I click on Office, it pretty much looks like the same screen that we saw when we were configuring the main menu. So you have a label and you have the source. It is one of these same spreadsheet tabs, but what is different? So in this case, there's obviously nothing different. It's just Office. What about communication? Let's have a look at other tabs. So that's also pretty much the same thing. So that means it is what these are. These are just different hyperlinks. So there's just different ways to get into the same screen, right? So this is just you can either, if you don't want to use one of these options, you can pretty much use the all tools and still go into the same thing. But the difference is that if you click on communication, it actually takes you to a slightly different screen. Now and this screen basically just shows you tools that are filtered by communication. So we'll look at that in a minute, but let's come back to layout. So on the home screen, we have simple images. So you click on one of these, it takes you to the second page. It's quite a simple functionality. If you click on layout, you can basically choose, or you can update what is displayed on this particular screen. You have layout, features, and edit. So for this case, they're using the details layout, a details style. You can use a bit of different other things as well. And what they've done is they've added components, and this, because all of these come from the spreadsheet, if you look at it, there's pretty much just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 images over here. If you click on one of the images, you can see that it basically tells you from where the image is loaded. So the image, in this case, it is stored in Firebase. So if you go back to the spreadsheet and go to the home tab, you can see there's this bunch of columns, and each one, so this is an image stored in just an image stored in Firebase. So that's just an external storage. You can store the image anywhere and just put in the URL in here, and so you can just change that if you don't want the same thing. So the text is on the image, so there's no additional text over here. So these are quite repetitive in this case, so they have just added 5 images. You can add various different other things as well. So if you I clicked on the plus button, which showed me the component screen, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different components that's here. So let's just look at a simple text, and I add a text, and I can say custom, and I can enter whatever text I want. So if I scroll down, since it's at the end of the component, it's actually there. And so if I put this up, the text should be right at the very beginning. And if I click on it, you can edit whatever text you want. Test header, and that shows up in the app. And style, I can choose different styles. So there's a heading 1 style as well. I can make it center aligned, and I can make it all caps. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can update. This is applicable to all components. So when you add a component, the component shows up here. This is the order in which it shows on your screen, and if you click on a component, depending on what the component is, it will allow you to edit different properties of the component, and as you edit it, you'll be able to see the output on your screen, main screen here. So this is true for text, this is true for image, and for every other component that you add from the list of components screen. Alright, so let's click on essentials, right? Since it's all tools and essentials, they both kind of seem like it's the same thing. Let's click on it and see how it was built. So what are we looking at? All right, so this is a detailed screen. Now what we'll do is I'll explain something from here. I'll explain how the screen was built, and then I'll actually show, I'll just probably click on one of these options and change the screen on how it looks like. So we'll do that, but before that, let's have a look at how it was actually built. So there's a detail screen, there's an image, there's a rich text. So previously we added a simple text. This is a rich text, which means you can write content in Markdown, and that's pretty much what it was. And then they've added another component called inline list. So if you click on the inline list, as you can see, it's quite a repetitive list here, so that the values for this list comes from the tools tab, and so this is basically just telling you from where the data has come from. So if you click on the tools tab, so it's basically coming from here. All the information is coming from here. So as you would imagine, your title, your image, all of that's what's coming from here. So these are just relating the columns, right? So you're just mapping the columns. So for image, you just need to find your column which actually stores the image for that particular tool. And what do we have here? So these are just various different other options. In this case, we already have images, so selecting on that would not actually matter. But what about this checkbox? So if you want to limit the number of items that are showed on a screen for whatever reason, you can click on this and select, let's say, 2. So that means you have two items and then you have a see all button which will actually take you to the entire page. So anyway, we'll disable this and keep it what it was before, and look at features. So you have layout tab, which tells you all the properties that are available for that particular tool, which in this case was an inline list. And there's a feature tab. So the features gives you just more ways to control what shows up on or using that component. And so you have a show search bar feature, which obviously allows you to filter this inline list. We have something called as a filter, and what it says is that its essential is Y. So if we edit this, so filters allows you to, so this is a list, so obviously you don't want to display everything. In this case we clicked on essentials, so what this is allowing us to do is to display only the essential tools. So if you go back to your spreadsheet, in your list of tools there's this column called essential, and they've just added a yes or a Y to all those tools that are considered as essential. This allows us to then go back to Glide, choose the column, and then filter it by essentials. So basically filtered by Y. So if you had, instead of Y, if you had 1, then that's probably what you would need to enter. But in this case, if it is an essential tool, they have chosen to write it as Y, but it totally depends on how you enter the data. And of course there's different ways to filter out. So you can say is not Y, and it will basically be all the non-essential tools. So you can create another tab called non-essentials and create the opposite filter for this, right? So it's quite easy once you know what these things are used for. Sorting, as you would imagine, is just used to sort the sort the list. In this case it is in ascending, sorting this column by ascending order, in the ascending order. You could change that if you want to. You can group the list. In this case, this, I don't think there's anything to group it by. Probably the category. We could give it a try. So if you click on category 1, there you go. Yep. So basically grouped it by the categories, and in each category then it basically orders it alphabetically. Anyway, so let's ungroup it. Let's put it back to what it was. Visibility is not set, so that's not a problem. And action is set to view details. So obviously there's a whole bunch of things that you can do over here. But let's go back to that. Having this set to view details allows us to click on it and then go to the detail screen, right? So that is actually quite crucial. Now on the view detail screen, so one thing to note here, as we are we are quite deep into explaining what Glide is. One of the things to note here is that all of these screens, assuming your data looks like that, it pretty much builds it automatically. So you don't actually have to build a screen for each and every item in this list. This pretty much picks things up and builds it for you. So that's why it is quite fast to build this stuff. So the UI and the UX, but also you can see why it could be quite limiting. So if you wanted something fancier, it may or may not have been possible. Now the detail screen basically gives you the details for one particular tool. As you would imagine, there's a whole bunch of different components, and we've looked at text before, so we won't look at it again. we look at title because it says title, but there's also an image. And so last time I clicked on this, it basically opened up a reference library. So this tells you what this component is, so that you can use to learn a bit more about it. Close that for now. So this title component, it allows you to add an image, which is optional. And also give some details. So let's say so basically if I keep this empty, it just considers it as optional. Or if I want to look at whatever it was before, then that text basically just shows up there. One thing to note is that you need to map the image, in this case the image URL, to that image property. So if you select image over here for the details, it will show the entire image URL. So it's not smart enough to detect that that's not an image, or that's not, that's an image URL and it's not a regular text. So you need to be careful about that. So that was a quick bit on title. What is new? There's a link that's new. So link is, this is the input. This is, it's pretty much the same thing. All components have some properties that you can update. So there's URL, which is the URL that you want to link to, and there is, oh nice, so there's a label that you can actually change. So you have page title. Awesome. So this, what it seems to be doing is, so this data, as you would see, it's actually not coming from here, is it? Yeah, so this data is actually not coming from the spreadsheet. So because this is a link to a website, what Glide is able to do is, for this display over here, it is able to pull up the page title from that website, right? So this is beautiful.ai, have I spelled it correctly? Yeah. And so if you see a beautiful AI presentation software, basic to beautiful in minutes, and that is what is showing up over here. So that's quite a cool feature actually. So it's pretty much crawling that website instantly and pulling up the page title for that. Now it can also pull up a short URL or a full URL, so it can do different things. This one over here, title, now this is not this title, since it's a bit different. Think of this as your components label, right? So this is the text that appears above the component. So this could be, I can change this to tool, link to the tool, link to the tool, and that shows up here. So that's something that can be played around with, but all of them pretty much have that. Can leave it blank, but then it just looks empty. So probably need to have something in place over here. So that's components for the detail screen. We had a look at this page. Yep. So we had a look at this one. So this is also coming from here. Yeah. So it's actually also coming from here. So that's pretty cool. Now I told you that we'll actually edit this and see how it actually looks like. So let's try list. as you would imagine. Oh, it actually keeps it in memory, so that's pretty good. So when I clicked on list, what it does is obviously it's from this spreadsheet, so it's just pulling up all the rows, all the different rows, and each column basically is just automatically, it's pre-filled it for us, so it has just decided to pick up this column, or map this column for the title of this particular component. And if I change the caption to what happens? Okay, there you go. So it's just changed dynamically. It has just decided to present the information in a different layout. So as you would see, it's quite different. So you can play around with all the things that are available here. Cards. So there's quite a few different things that are available here, and it depends on how you want to present the information that you're building, the app that you're building. You can play around with different styles. Awesome. So as you would imagine, all these three items, these three tabs, is pretty much the same screen. All tools and essentials pulls up data from the tools tab, and how to's pulls up information from the how to's tab, right? So as long as you have all this information in here, when you click on that particular tab, this screen just gets populated automatically, and all of these components are pretty much the same, function in the same way that we just had a look at a few minutes before. Now the about screen it also works in the same way, but I just wanted to sort of touch base on this. How is it different? Now this, if you go to the about tab, you would notice that it is a single row, right? So this is quite important. So you don't actually have to have multiple rows in your spreadsheet or in a particular sheet. You can just have a single row, and it just picks up and it just displays all the information here based on different columns, right? So if you have a column where the data that you're entering is an email address, Glide actually is smart enough to pick this for you. So even if you start from scratch, or even if you add a new tab to this app and have an email, it should automatically pick that up for you. But of course you can give it a try. And if you have a look at the email component, you can see again the properties are quite different, but pretty much it's still the same. The core concept is still the same, and it knows to pick up the email address or the email column. You can fill in this information if because what this does is just creates a mail to link. So if you click on it, it will bring up Outlook or whatever email app that you have installed in a system. And if you want to pre-fill certain text, you can do that as well. This of course is the caption for that, or the label for that field. The rest of it is pretty much the same thing. Let's see if we have not looked at anything before. So click on sales. Sales brings up another screen. This one is a list. Now go back to tools. Alright, so the menu over here, the menu that we just opened up over here, this sort of it matches with the category 1 column. And here, as you can see, there's sales. So there are certain tools that are of this particular category, so it falls under sales, for example, and then you sort of have a subcategory. and so you would imagine that only those tools show up. But how did this happen? So where is the filters over here? So if you recall, from this particular page, from the property screen, after selecting the style, after mapping the columns to each component, what we did was we went to features, and over here we have an option to filter the information. So um, previously we were on the Essentials tab, if you recall, and on the Essentials tab we filtered all the information that was marked as an essential, marked with the character with a capital Y. And in this case, what we're doing is we are looking at category 1, the column category 1, and we are looking at the contents of it, and it should match. So is category 1 is sales. So if we change this to office, for example, which there's another menu that actually does that, we change it to office, everything will change it. It'll fetch new data for us. Give back to sales. And of course, when you click on each one of these items, it actually goes into the details screen, which is what's mentioned over here. Now, one of the things that I noticed is when I clicked on this particular filter, and perhaps even you noticed this, you have category 1 and category 2 appearing, which is fine because those are the two columns, but you also had something like this appearing, category, and then of course there's a few other columns. But if you look at the spreadsheet, that's actually not there. That column is not there. So this particular one, this is called array columns. So this is a glide concept. Basically, if you enter, you can have multiple columns with different names, but in this case we have a column which is prefixed with the same name. So you have category, and then suffixed with a number, a sequential number. So what this does is you can actually group different. So let's say if you have like 3 images that you want to display for each of these, you can actually have image 1, 2, and 3, and then you could probably add a slideshow, for example, and it should automatically pull it up from here. I'll leave the link to that concept in the description of this video. Unfortunately, they have not actually used in this particular application. They have not actually used array columns, and because of that, we can't really dive deeper into that. But I think it's just something to keep in the back of your mind that it's if you're wondering how it magically appeared. If you add another column called category 3, that's what all the data will sort of get populated in as an array called category. Alright, so that is pretty much what you can see from this screen. We had a look at tabs, so that we've covered pretty well. We had a look at what these different tabs does. What we didn't have a look is data. So this is another way for you to visualize your data. So last time we clicked on the edit sheet, and then it basically opened up the Google Sheet itself, but you can also click on data and visualize what a data structure looks like. Now in this view, when you're looking at things from this view, you would notice that the images over here, it actually shows up as the thumbnail of the image rather than the URL itself. So I think that is pretty cool. So it's not straight information from your spreadsheet. It still does a bunch of different things on top of it. So it still has this additional UI built on top of it. If you scroll bit to the right, you would notice both the category columns have been combined into this one, although individually they are still available. But since I mentioned this concept called array columns, if you give it the same name or prefix it with the same name and then a space and then a sequential number after that, it sort of decides that to be an array column, and combines the information at least visually over here, and of course a bunch of different other images. The other tabs, I suppose they just look the same. um, Now one of the things, now when you use this, so I wouldn't imagine that you would actually edit data over here. Well, you can edit data, the existing data. You won't really add data to using this view. What you could also do is add a bunch of different columns. Now with Glide, you can add the static, static columns to your spreadsheet. That some of it does not actually appear here. Um, so you can add. There are different column types that you can add. You can have basic text, which what you'd imagine your normal spreadsheet looks like, but you can also use these different other column types. Now, for example, you have math, right? So this is a glide specific column type. So most of these are glide specific column types. So let's say you have a formula. So you can add a formula, and you can configure that formula to appear here. You can use a bunch of different other things as well, and then that information appears here. So all of the glide specific columns will show up with a different icon, um, similar to how this category column has showed up. So this it shows up with a different icon over here, and of course glide specific columns won't actually appear in your spreadsheet. So that is basically stored with glide. So that's something that we talked about very briefly in the drawbacks of using a no-code tool. One is, of course, you have no control over the data. Some of it you have. It's your own spreadsheet, but if you obviously configure custom columns, then that sort of remains with the tool provider. So just something that you need to consider, so just in case you need to migrate your app somewhere else. And finally, you have these two other options. We'll look at preview as in another video, because I think that one, you probably require another app to demo, to really show what this looks like, and we will. So for now, we'll just have a look at settings. So these settings shows up with different other settings over here. Of course, you have templates, you have billings, you have integrations, which just talks about the account itself. So billing talks about the account itself. Integrations is if you have connected your app to with different other providers. So these are a few other advanced concepts that hopefully we'll get to have a look at using a different template. Template is if just like we copied a template from the template marketplace, you can build your own templates and then sell that as well, but I think you need a pro plan for that. So you can control the data syncs. So let's say if you are editing something in the Excel sheet and you want the data to show up in the app, you can control how the data is being synced as well. Or in this case, it is actually when the user is editing something in the app, when does it show up in the Excel file. So sorry, it's my apologies, it's actually the opposite way. So only on edit or while editing or using the app. So I think that's what it is. So this is another pro feature that I haven't unlocked, but in case you want the user to check a few terms and conditions, you can do that. You can show the user with a sign-in screen, so you don't necessarily have to make public apps. You can show sign-in screens and you can customize that. For this particular app, probably not dive too much into this because the this app is a public app, so do not actually use that. Sharing, this is again if you want to allow people to copy the templates. So this is if you click on this, it will show up in the marketplace, but as a free app to be able to copy. Whereas in this option that we had a look at, this was to be able to sell your templates. Privacy, so this is similar to what we just had a look at before. If you select public with email, then the user will be presented with the email screen, but since this is a public app, the user is not presented with a sign-in screen, hence we sort of skipped in that section. What you probably end up using for sure is the app info. You can customize your icon, you can change the name, the author, and the description of the app, and finally the appearance. So you can play around with this and have a look at different colors. So what you notice is that this is the warning sign that's being given. So if I just click on any other color, the warning sign disappears. So that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the video that it is not it's not a significant error. So it's just a warning about the color scheme. Where the color scheme applies, as you can see, it's on these accents. So we can choose a dark theme for the app. We can choose um, a light theme for the app, and play around with these different themes however you like, and play around with these different colors however you like as well. And of course the typography for which is the the font. So if I click on this, it should change. Yep, the font text changed a bit. So the style of the font, what it uses. So that's settings. We had a look at edit sheet, and of course reload sheet is if we have added a new tab. So as you can see, there's tools, how to, about. If I add a new tab over here, it depends on how the sync is configured. It may not show up instantaneously. You might need to click the reload sheet option for it to show up. Just something to just make a note of, finally, if you have a look at rows, put your mouse over that, you'll see what plan you are on, and how are you hitting, how are you how are you doing within the limits of the particular plans. If you need more um, if you're hitting the limits for any of these quotas. So in the free plan, you have these different quotas, and individually you could hit one of these as well. So there's something to make a note of. Depends on what app you're building. Finally, when you're happy to present this app to the public, for everyone else to use, you can click on the share option, which, because I've not published the app before, it will ask me to publish the app. It basically decides just a random name so that it's not duplicate, but I'll be unpublishing, I'll be deleting the app anyway. So let's just copy that and look at it in a different, in an incognito window, so that we're not signed in. And just like that, it shows up. And so obviously you can, once you publish your app, you can open this in the mobile, on your mobile phone, and just use it like a normal app. So these the other branding and other elements on this, on a mobile, it does not actually show up, only the content shows up, but on a desktop, the other stuff shows up as well. So if you if you upgrade from a free tier to a pro pricing tier, you could potentially remove the Glide app branding and play around with the screen as well. So just something to note. It works. So all the apps pretty much are mobile first apps, not really desktop apps, as you can see. So that's what the app looks like. Um, and that is pretty much it actually. We covered quite a bit. For our first app, um, and that was pretty good. Nothing to We did not talk to about some advanced features. We'll probably look at it um, in a future video. But yeah, I think this was a pretty good introduction, or of course, it's quite a long one as well. Um, but at the end, we got there. We built an app, or we at least looked at how an app was built from nothing but a spreadsheet. And if you have any questions, please post it on the comments, or if you have any thoughts about this video, how it was, what you liked, and maybe what you did not like, and probably want to see anything different from these videos. Please let me know in the comments. Probably reply, and we can follow up on that. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll also uh, add a referral link, either this one or the other one, in the description of the video. If you click on that and sign up to Glide, uh, it would show up under, well, it wouldn't show up under my tab on my screen, but I'll probably get a bit of extra stuff, just an additional few hundred rows, I guess. Or if you don't want to use the referral link, feel free to go to glideapps.com and sign up for yourself. And that's pretty much for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do give this video a like, subscribe if you want to receive further updates, whenever I post a new video. And if you thought this was really helpful, then definitely share it with your friends and family, so that you can all build apps from nothing but a spreadsheet. That's it from me, and you have a good week ahead. All right, see ya.